successfully defended his world heavyweight championship.
Rogers strut.
Kowalski's got him right where he wants him.
Dory Funk Jr. wanting that world heavyweight championship.
10 pounds of pure gold.
Simon Felder's Dusty Rhodes has just become the world heavyweight wrestling champion.
Presenting the greatest organization in wrestling history.
We always deliver on our promises at the National Wrestling Alliance.
What are you going to work now?
Hey everybody, it's Durger time. Thank you for joining me for episode 0 of our brand new save, NWA The Dynasty. That's right, we are back in the NWA. I've talked about it if you're on the Discord, so you know what's going on. But in case you're not familiar, we kind of sunsetted our old save, but are kind of coming back to it. This is sort of a little bit of a reboot, a little bit of a sequel. It's not a day zero story. We are kind of picking up where the Billy Corgan's NWA story left, with some new changes, some new twists, and a new direction. I wanted to change it up because we've been doing that save in some capacity or another for like 4 years, 5 years now, I think. And I had a lot of passion for it early on, and a lot of that passion had to do with the NWA in the real world and what was happening with it. You know, it was interesting because you didn't know what was going to happen there. You had Billy Corgan, who had all this money and experience and impact, and he's going to buy the NWA, and NWA was at one point an important part of the wrestling landscape, an important part of the legacy for a lot of wrestlers. So rekindling it and turning it into something important again seemed really fascinating. And over time, it just was clear that it wasn't going to be well, it wasn't going to be that interesting, right? We saw bad booking, we saw weird roster decisions, and ultimately, I think as it became clear that the NWA wasn't really going to be as interesting or as special as it started out in 2018 or so, that my passion to run Billy Corgan's NWA diminished. And a lot of that also had to do with just some booking that I had, where I felt I had booked myself into a corner in some storylines that I was no longer interested in, and some direction that I needed to course correct in our old save that I would need to do months of work to get out of, and I wasn't sure if that would be interesting. So I took a hiatus. I wanted to step away from it all and figure out what I wanted to do, and I kind of came up with this idea of like, well, what if my vision for how cool Billy Corgan's NWA could have been, you know, what was the core of that, and how can we apply that? And so we took it to a new direction, and that is what the Dynasty is. It is about rebuilding the legacy of the NWA, rebuilding the alliance itself, and it's about a family. Actually, it's about multiple families looking to cement a legacy, to build a dynasty through the NWA. So some of you had already, I sent out a little teaser, a little fake mock-up news story, and you guys picked up the pieces pretty quickly, so I didn't decide to even put out any others, because it seemed like everyone kind of figured out what was going on. Dustin Rhodes, in a shock, has left AEW. What had happened, this does follow the continuing timeline of our old NWA. So Jeff Jarrett, at some point, had some legal issues. The NWA, Billy Corgan's NWA, went under, and for months and months, it lingered until it was bought by Dustin Rhodes and family. Because the NWA for the Rhodes family is important. It's a part of their father's legacy, and it's an area that, you know, he was instrumental in helping book and grow, and they don't want it to just disappear. And so they wanted to take that opportunity to build it into something again. And that's what we're going to do. We're playing Dustin, but he has grabbed a bunch of people in, all members of the family, as well as some other stuff we'll get into, to try to rebuild the NWA. Now, we are starting in week 1 of January 2023. You'll see that we are a much smaller company than we were, because we've been, all of the negative news and the roster changes and the closures, the bankruptcy has put us in a position where not the same size. We're not that much smaller because there's still a lot of momentum into us because this big shocking change, right? So we have that going for us, but we are not the same size, and we have to deal with that. And that's going to be obviously one of our first orders of business is to grow into a small size company. Right now we are tiny. We are on the cusp of small. We're only at a 32 in the Southeast where we're located, and we have the opportunity to grow. You can see also here our new logo, a combination of our old logo and the traditional NWA logo. I thought it would be a nice send-off on both. Decided this is still part of that continuity, but also it's something a little bit different. I'm really happy with it. So you will see that plastered everywhere. So we know we have some work to do with our size. We do have some capital. So we have $750,000. The Rhodes family added that capital into the company, make it grow. And we're going to need that because we have some very expensive things to deal with. The main expense that we have is that when Dustin left, he convinced QT Marshall to bring the Nightmare Factory over. Nightmare Factory is QT Marshall and Cody and Dustin's training facility, dojo, where they've been training people. They've been doing that mostly for AEW people, but they're not affiliated. They're a third-party dojo, and they've convinced them to move them over. So we are paying money. We're paying a substantial amount of money. They are currently a dojo, not a training facility. They were originally a training facility. I bumped them down to dojo to just kind of be in sync with the change in funding and sourcing. That it would be highly unlikely that NWA would be even associated with a full performance center training facility. It'd be a little crazy. But they're a dojo. They're a wrestling school. They're going to be outputting about, like 4 wrestlers a year. So we're going to have some new faces into the wrestling world that we might be dealing with that are going to be skilled up, that we're going to be adding. But they are going to cost about $42,000 a month. So that's a substantial cost. And that's probably going to eat away at our initial sort of war chest here, right? So we know that's fine. We're aware of that. But it's definitely going to be a lingering issue that we're going to have to decide at some point, do we lower, well, actually, I don't think we can even lower these, but, we're just going to have to deal with the cost, or do we shut it down? We're not going to try to shut down the training facility. We're going to try to keep it running, but it is certainly going to be something that's going to cost us some money. Other things that are going to cost us some money is that we have sort of a mini objective early on in the save, is that if we can make over $1 million, which I doubt will happen anytime soon. Cody Rhodes originally had the rights to a lot of the old NWA, WCW era IPs, intellectual properties. He had traded them, actually, to WWE in, I want to say, 2019 for the rights to his last name, which is why, there's like war games and stuff like that on NXT. So there's a bunch of pay-per-views and intellectual property that Dusty made, that he owned, that he traded, and we're going to want those back. But we're not going to be able to do that until we pay WWE for it. So I decided that it's going to be $1 million. That seems probably low, but for the sake of the game, that's what we're going to have. Now, we could, if we make $250,000 or something like that, we could get it, but then we would go bankrupt. So we're really going to need to have more than $1 million in the bank. But once we cross that threshold, we can purchase those, which is going to be sort of a mini objective for us, so that we could start to put on some classic pay-per-views. Until then, we have to kind of use new branding. The other big change here is our titles. You will see there are no titles in here. There is the World Television title, which is blank. There is the Crockett Cup, which is a tournament, which is blank, obviously. Where's the Worlds? Where's the Women's? Where's the Tag? Where's anything? Well, part of the vision of the Rhodes family is to rebuild the dynasty and the legacy of the NWA. And NWA is not a singular company. Certainly we are booking a singular company, but the true legacy of the NWA is in the A of the NWA. That is the Alliance. Back in its peak, the NWA was something in the territorial days that really meant something. And that meant that there were roaming, traveling champions that were going from independent company to independent company. They were all signed up together in this alliance that at one point spanned the globe. It wasn't even just in the nation of the United States. It had, territories in Puerto Rico and I believe Mexico and Canada and a couple, I think, in Europe and at least one in Japan. They represented a certain standard of a certain type of wrestling, and many different companies that normally would never see the level of talent that existed in NWA at the time. They would never see it on their shores or in their promotion. They had the ability to get that because they were all aligned together, working together. And that's truly what we're going to be trying to build. We're going to be trying to rebuild the Alliance, to grow it, to help protect and foster and grow the independent scene. So our Alliance, which is currently empty, it's just us. Now, in the previous game, we did have other companies. Part of the sort of bankruptcy is that they all got sold back to like your original owners, essentially, and reconverted. So we are starting at ground zero here. The Alliance will allow pretty much anybody, though. While I did not expressly remove anything, I would imagine edgy companies or MMA influenced companies would probably not be ones that we are going to jump at. We're going to be looking more for entertainment, maybe hardcore, but probably steering away. If we're looking for like tier 1s to tier 3s, with like, threes being not our primary goal, but we'll take them, and anything below 3, we're not going to take them. We're probably not going to take an MMA influence because that's just not the style. We're probably not going to take an edgy company because that would be off-brand. But work rate probably is a tier 2. Entertainment's a tier 1. Lucha's probably a tier 2. And hardcore, kid-friendly is probably a tier 3, and so is hardcore. So we'll take them, but they're not our primary goals because they're much more of a difference in our product, right? So we have to, build this back up. Part of building it back up is that we have our Alliance title. Now, I put the World's Heavyweight, which is currently vacant. Every belt's vacant because the company's been closed down. Tag team, women's, heavyweight. If it's a World's, it is in the Alliance because they should be traveling from company to company. That's what we have. That provides a bit of a risk, but also some interesting booking situations because that means that other people can book their talent to, take that championship. So it's something that we're going to have to also look at, that we're probably always going to want to be the top dog to control who is in the Alliance and whose titles are ours or not. Who controls that, and is usually the top dog controls it. But if something weird happens, it's kind of interesting because then we get to play with that, right? It's a little unexpected variable that we get to, so if the women's title changes, well, we just move a storyline to that, and then that makes that kind of interesting. So I don't have an issue with that. It does provide a little bit of a lack of control, or remove some control, I should say, but it does provide some interesting booking opportunities. Now, we are, I don't know if I could see it on here. We are a public alliance and a trading alliance. So that means that we can trade talent, which really doesn't matter that much in this game, in this save, because so much of the talent is open and available. But the public alliance means that every company's prestige and momentum affects one another because we're all representative of the NWA, right? So we have to keep that in mind when we hire people, or when we accept alliance members, that we have to be careful about who we take in. But that also means that we will be able to help and elevate the other smaller companies that we take under our wing, which is sort of the goal. In terms of Dustin, let's quickly just look at his user stats here. We could take a look at Dustin. Not that one. We want user talents. So he's a modified industry veteran. So there's some negatives that he has. He's not a good negotiator. He's also not very good at diplomacy. He's got a bit of a hot temper, and he doesn't really have a silver tongue. But he's incredibly motivating. He's got average creativity, and he's a very strong leader. People respect him in the back. So we should have very few morale issues. We might not be getting the best deal on our contracts. And when situations do happen and arise in backstage, we might not be the best person to resolve it. So that's set up for what we have in terms of our creativity and our user talents. So that is sort of what we have there. We have currently no shows in the immediate future. We're going to have to set up a brand new pay-per-view. We're going to try to do one pay-per-view a month, I think, just to try to brute force our way to becoming as popular as possible. Will that cost money? Yeah, but that's why we have $750,000 to play with. Right now, we only have 3 actual pay-per-views set up, which is Crockett Cup, the Anniversary Show, and Hard Times. Into the Fire is available, but we're probably not going to use it. So is Empower and Always Ready, but we're not going to use Always Ready. And When Shadows Fall is available as well. And Back for the Attack, we might use some of these. Back for the Attack, we might use for our resurgence, but we're going to have some original ones that we're going to make until we can get some of the, classic NWA era, Cheatown Rumbles and stuff like that, or Stampede. We're going to try to bring those back, but we need to buy them first. You also see that USA and Power are dormant. That's because they're Billy Corgan era promotions, and we're not taking that branding. Instead, we're bringing back NWA's first show. It used to be called Worldwide Wrestling. It's TV taped. So we're going to tape it on Mondays. I think air it on Saturdays. It's going to be a Saturday afternoon. So Saturday. Well, actually, it's technically on demand, but it's going to drop on Saturdays. Classic, old school pro wrestling thing. It had eventually turned from Worldwide Wrestling to NWA Worldwide, then later became WCW Worldwide. And so we have the brand new logo, which will pop up on screen. NWA Worldwide. It's reminiscent of the NWA Power logo, but a little bit more modernized, which is kind of going for the direction that we have, which is a throwback, but it's modern, In terms of product, it's Dustin booking it. So it made sense for the product to be sort of a classic Southern wrestling style. Face and heel is available, but loosely enforced. Obviously, there are stables and managers. We're not doing a weight split, and we do have a small division for women's. This gives us 90% matches, 10% angles expected for events, and then 70% matches and 30% angles for TV shows. So there's a nice variety in there. The important one is that there's a nice ratio split between popularity and in-ring action that's going to be really beneficial to us. Matches are rated either on a 40-60 scale, between in-ring action getting 40 and popularity getting 60, or a 55-45 between in-ring action and popularity, depending on what gets the best rating. That's super useful because that almost gives us basically half. So if a person's really popular, they're going to get a better score, even if their work rate isn't great. But if a person has better work rate, but only an okay popularity, they're going to get a better boost from their in-ring, even if they're not as popular. So it's a nice blend. It's a very physical style. Fans are put off by extreme types of matches. And then obviously we have 15-minute matches or less will not achieve world-class scores. And if they're overbooked, we might get penalized unless they're really good. Other than that, it's kind of the expected penalties that come with most of the modern promotions. Everyone's expected to have a gimmick or they'll get a small penalty. Angles based on sex appeal or eye candy are going to get ratings limited. Fans expect storylines. And then, of course, every show we need at least one storytelling match and one wild brawl. And we are strongly affected by the state of the wrestling industry. So that we are on an ebb and flow because we are kind of a nostalgia product. Crazy bumps or stump bumps give us a boost. And then comedy gimmicks cannot be associated with stars or major stars. Other than that, it's pretty much a standard promotion. It's going to be pretty malleable for us, but it fits the style that we're looking for. So I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, I mean, that's basically the company. There's still some people I want to hire that we need to add to the roster. We're at 36 people, which is higher than we need to be, but I feel more comfortable being at like a 42 to 45. I always like to have a few more people because the game's like, if we played at 36, we would just have the same 3 people in each, in the stars, the major stars, just constantly fighting each other. It gets a little bland and boring. We want people that are, within arm's reach of each other. There's a nice rotation around. So, there's people that are upper mid-carders and main eventers, and they can ebb and flow, and there's enough people that there's a variety in storylines. So we want a few more people. You'll see as we get into the roster in a second here that the big focus is we kept a lot of people, but we also trimmed a lot of the fat. Anybody that I felt like I wasn't interested in booking a storyline immediately on, I got rid of. But we did bring back a lot of people that were in Billy Corgan's NWA for us. So you'll see a lot of familiar faces, but any of the new faces, for the most part, not exclusively, but for the most part, were in a theme of second generation stars, right? If the Dynasty is all about rebuilding legacy, there's a lot of people that are on the roster that aren't normally picked on these shows that are here because they either the NWA meant something to them or they're really focused on rebuilding a dynasty. So let's go ahead and let's get on to the roster and we'll walk through who we have and who we signed for the debut of the show. All right, so let's go through the roster and see who are our starting roster here in the NWA. Starting with the undercard, let's go ahead and see who is returning. We have, as a personality and commentator, we have Vink Vavasour returning, playing Paul Pinky George III, our former fictional son of the owner character will be returning with us. An interesting signing that was brand new is we have son of Harley Race, Leland Race, joining the NWA. We have son of Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express, Kerry Morton, joining the NWA. We have returning member of the Smoking Aces and YouTuber and magician, Jarek120, returning. Also returning for our women's division is Delilah Doom. And joining with his father, we have Brock Anderson with Arn Anderson. Going up to our lower card, we have in our lower mid cards, Colby Carino joining the NWA, joining for a backstage role, as well as a person who can occasionally wrestle. We have Glacier. For our women's division on the lower card, we have Marty Bell. From the Nightmare Factory is Aaron Solo. Also from the Nightmare Factory, we've brought in Nick Camarado. We also have Tim Storm returning, as well as his fictional son that we made, Tim Storm Jr. Another member of Smoking Aces, and I believe former championship wrestling from Hollywood champion, I want to say, Zicky Dice returning to the NWA. Going to our mid-card, we have Marshall and Ross Von Erich, the Von Erich boys, sons of Kevin Von Erich. Kevin also joining them, returning former champions in our save. Some new faces in the mid-card, though. We have Chris Adonis joining the NWA. We also have Mance Warner joining us for the NWA. And for our women's division, Kylie Ray. Going up on our upper half of the roster, we have people who are stars or stars in the making in our upper mid-card. We have the Rock and Roll Express, after being convinced by Dustin and Cody, QT Marshall has brought the Nightmare Factory as well as some alumni. So QT Marshall will be here as a road agent as well as an occasional wrestler and possibly manager. Another Smoking Aces member, one that we didn't really utilize and I'm hoping we use a little bit more. Tag partner of Zicky Dice, we have Matthias Breeze, aka Tyler Breeze. Of course, the head of Smoking Aces, as well as the former and the most recent NWA World's Champion in our save, Ace Austin, returns. For our women's division, Allison Kay returns. Brian Pillman Jr., former World's Champion for us, returns, as does Homicide, the friend of Eddie Kingston, former deputy in charge of his stable, The Kingdom. A recent signing that we had rejoining us after the end of the save, we have Joe Axel Henning, aka Curtis Axel, a second-generation star. Brand new signing for us, but one that has wrestled in the NWA for real. We have Aaron Stevens, aka Damian Sandow. Another new signing for us, and another second-generation star. We have Davey Boy Smith Jr., and with a family legacy to uphold, we have former NLW champion and a person who has wrestled for us in our tag division for our Crockett Cup. Now joining as a singles competitor, we have the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu, joining us for the Dynasty. And finally, for our top of the card, joining Davey Boy Smith Jr. is Lance Archer, one half of the Killer Elite Squad, also a returning name in our women's division and former NWA champion in our save. We have Ramona Riot, aka Ruby Soho. Ricky Starks returns for us here in the Dynasty. Of course, our original NWA champion, one of the longest reigning NWA champions, we have Nick Aldis returning. A former champion of ours, Eddie Kingston, returns to the NWA. And likely our main eventer, with a ironclad, probably problematic contract, we have the son of a plumber, Cody Rhodes, joining his brother to enter the Dynasty. So we have all of the Rhodes family, as well as some friends. Obviously, we could see a lot of the people that have surrounded him, and surrounded both Dustin and Cody here in the NWA. Certainly going to be an impact for us. Cody, in particular, has a pretty substantial contract. We luckily have an exclusive written contract for only $2,000 a show, which we'll have for a 3-year contract he agreed to, but he wants to be used as an icon. He gets 10% off of each event. He needs creative control. He needs a hiring veto, and he needs a wage matching clause. So if anybody ever comes in at a higher rate than him, he wants the higher cut. And of course, that is ironclad, and his travel is paid for. So he is it's not an untenable contract, but he has a pretty substantial contract here to work for us. But he's willing to come in to work with Dustin. In our universe, he must have had some type of cut clause in his WWE contract where if he was not satisfied with the creative in a year, he could leave, and he chose to do so to join his brother to rebuild the NWA for his father. So that is sort of the setup for our save. I'm very excited about it. I'm sure there's some gaps in our roster that we could be looking to grab some more people from. So if you can think of people to sign up for this, let me know. I do want at least like 4 or 5. We definitely need some more women's competitors, and we probably need some more tag teams as well. So that's definitely going to boost up our total stable size, or our total roster size, I should say. But, that we're going to need some more tag teams. The focus for the save in terms of who we hire, we're not going to shy away from hiring a big name if it's available, if we feel like there's a story there. But primarily who I want to hire are people that are second or third generation stars. Their families are wrestlers. They have something to prove. And, they want to come here as sort of that second chance, right? So you can see that with the roster that we have. We have Davey Boy Smith Jr., we got Colby Carino, we have, obviously the Rhodes family, but there's a lot of names in there that are, Leland Race, obviously a lot of people that are second generation stars. Maybe they never got their full shot. Maybe they want to, surpass their family's legacy. So people that fit that have, that type of lineage are people we're definitely going to be scouting for, because that fits sort of the brand and the dynamic for the NWA Dynasty. So let me know who you think would be a good fit. I'm going to try to get the first episode up probably early next week. So we'll have it ready. Hopefully this will be up first before I film it. It should be. I think this will be up late this week. So I should have some opportunity to see your guys' input for the roster and make some additions if possible there. But yeah, I'm very excited about the save. Hopefully you guys are too. Let me know in the comments. I'll see you next time.